Hey guys, so I've made a third update to this master material, and this one I think is a little more useful. It basically is just enabling paintable dirt. It's going to work pretty much exactly like the wetness did, although this time instead of painting with red, we're going to paint with green. So just be aware of the different channels. If you paint like all three at the same time, if you were painting the color white, you would paint both the water and the dirt look to it. But what's nice is that the dirt is also fully interactable with the material. What that means is that if you change the roughness of the material, it could affect the dirt. If you tile the UVs on the material differently, it will tile the dirt along with it. In fact, the dirt is actually based off of the world normal space. So if you have tileable meshes, like a floor mesh where parts of it go together, you're not going to get seams at the edges of those meshes because it's the normals of the dirt texture are based on the world space, not the local object space. Also, like with the rest of the material, you can choose between using a texture, using a pure color. You can use a different dirt for the normal, or sorry, a different normal for the dirt over using a different, over using the same one. Also, actually, I think that's about it. You can also obviously adjust the sharpness of it. Like I said, you can adjust tiling. So this material, rightfully so, is pretty much fully interactable with the base material. So with that, let us go ahead and get into it because I'm excited about this one. I think this one is actually pretty cool. So I'm gonna drop down my static mesh like I always do and go here in my master material and just plop it on there. This texture is kind of garbage, I'm not going to lie, but I threw something together because this needs a height map as well as a normal map, so keep that in mind. This painting is set up such, oh shoot, I need to make an instance. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. Make an instance. Don't use the master. Make an instance. Okay. Yeah, you do need a height map for this because the way dirt kind of like naturally accumulates on objects is in the crevices of it, and that's exactly how this works. It uses the height map to pretty much determine where the dirt is going to spawn from when you start painting. So with that being said, let's actually go and turn on a couple of these settings. So we are going to enable all of these dirt parameters, and you're probably going to see the texture, the material disappear because it needs to, load everything up. This is not a light shader. This shader is actually pretty heavy. I still haven't actually got around to seeing how that impacts performance, but I am going to go ahead and paint all three of my channels black. So that gets rid of everything, and then we're just going to focus on green. And if we look, start painting for me, please. Oh, whoops. Got to be painting white, not black. Alright, so look, boom, there we go. Paintable dirt, but maybe the dirt is too rough or something. So let's open this back up and my parameters here. Which one of these is gonna do it? Do enable the dirt roughness texture. I thought I had these on. Okay, there we go. So if the normals on the dirt are too much, we can just turn those down a bit. See, notice over here how our normals are now being affected because this has that control built in. Theoretically, you could break the normals and make it terribly ugly, but I'm not going to clamp this. I'm going to leave that there because there's probably some scenario where that's going to come in handy for an artist wanting to do some specific look. So I'm not going to clamp any of these to 0 or 1. There's also this coordinate multiplier. If we want to break up the texture more or less, we can sort of, it might look that like it's changing the sharpness. What this is actually doing is adjusting the UV space. It's multiplying the dirt U coordinate and V coordinates times this value. So if I set this to something really high, it would be like a super, super sampling that. Although you're probably not going to see it because it's, but yeah, it kind of has the same effect as, well, okay, it's a little, but yeah, it is just multiplying your coordinates by that amount. So if you have a real noisy texture and you want to actually have the noise be super fine, you could regenerate your map or you could just increase your multiplier. I'm going to leave this at 1. We can also offset the amount of dirt if I want it to take over my entire mesh. Probably helps to not have this. So if we wanted this to take over my entire mesh as we see here, It's gonna go. Be careful. This uses a divide node, so weird things will probably happen at 0. I mean, you can't divide by 0, so it's not going to do anything Unreal smart enough. But if you wanted to paint the inverse of where you wanted dirt, I guess you could by switching by switching this to negative value. And again, I'm not going to clamp this either because there's probably some weird look somewhere that someone is going to want to actually have that ability for. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. I might add in like a dirt tint. I also might add in there was a dirt roughness modifier. Although, okay, yeah, this is the amount offset. That's what this is. I might add in a roughness modifier to actually adjust the roughness of that. I think that it goes based off of the roughness here in as it is. Use the texture, please. Yeah, it probably goes based off of the roughness value that's kind of already baked in. So I might add in a control for that. I'm not terribly concerned with that at the moment. The last thing before I sign off for here, the emission actually acknowledges the existence of dirt. And that's kind of cool because as we wait for the shader to recalculate, I'm going to go ahead and turn on all my glow parameters. Well, I don't want a glow mask texture, so I'm going to be able to leave that at 0. If I say like you had some robotic arm where parts of it were glowing, but it was still old and kind of, trash from a junkyard. So if part of it's glowing, let's go ahead and turn this power to 1. It reflects that dirty area. In fact, it's also kind of doing it based off of the overall mesh. But, if I turn up the glow more, it's still going to recognize that dirt is there, which I think is pretty cool. But let's say that you wanted to have this look like dirt, or sorry, dust. This is probably where I'm going to add in a tint control to like let you change the color. You can set the glow amount for the dirt as well. So if it's set to 1, it's going to pretend like it's not there. But say it's like semi-translucent, it's going to let some of it through, but it's still going to block sunlight because it's there. And this is all arbitrary. You probably could even, I bet if you set this higher than 1, it might actually emit, yeah. You can set it higher to 1 and have those areas emit light. So if you had like some radioactive dust, I guess that's also a thing you could do. I honestly wasn't thinking about that and intending that to happen, but this is another control that I'm not going to clamp because for look development purposes, it just makes sense that if you have a glowing dust on someone, that I guess you let that dust glow. So let's say that Actually, I'm interested to see if this works. So if I set my glow power to 0, okay, cool. So this is independent of the glow controls as well, which is, I'm definitely then going to need to add a tint for this. Although I wonder, I bet this is going to follow the color of the, nope. This is completely, okay, this was by accident, but I'm okay with this. This glow is completely independent of the base glow, so I'll probably go in and add a tint that will also affect the glow color as well, just to keep things simple, but that's kind of cool. So yeah, if you, for whatever reason, had a radioactive dust or something, now you can do that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn those normals back up to 1 so you really get a feel for it being there, and we can, literally just adjust everything. Probably even turn this up just a little bit more. That honestly just looks like an unnatural light on it. And there's probably a scenario somewhere where that makes sense. So yeah, that is the 3rd revision of this. I don't think there's much more that I can even add. Just to kind of give you a quick look at how intense this material is, there's a lot going on here. We've got our UV tiling, our normals. We're able to detail tile like I illustrated earlier, as well as kind of adjust the intensities. This is the world normal space that only affects the actual dirt normals. There's our vertex color inputs to do the different things. So this is not a light material, but it's pretty full featured, and I bet this will be good for a lot of landscape materials where you're going to be wanting to paint dirt and paint wetness. I'll probably go and recreate or use a different version of this that's more for things where you know you're not going to want to paint that, so you just don't even have those in the shader. Because if you look, there's a lot of instructions, and in fact, there's even a lot of textures going on here. You know, you've got a texture for your base color, your metal, your roughness, your glow, two for your normals, one for your height, and then for the dirt, you also have three additionals. So there's a lot going on. But hopefully you guys, think this is a little pretty cool material. I hope it'll be useful. In fact, I think that it will, because it's just going to be awesome to, drag and drop stuff and then start painting it however you want. I don't think I have wetness on right now. Yeah, I don't actually have wetness on, so it's not gonna, you know. But yeah, so with that, I will sign off, and I might make another video that's more actually breaks down the shader a little bit more, so you could try and rebuild it if you want. But it's actually a relatively simple shader. If you grasp the concept of colors, of the switch parameters, the lerps, and just using when to use parameters, it's actually not a terribly complex shader. All right, thank you guys for watching, and with that, I will sign off.